So if you're watching this video, it's probably because you're being deployed into a joint operation and you're expected to be involved in some of the debriefing activities. If you're watching this video at any other time apart from the first few months of 2016, it's probably worth checking with your team leader to see if there's a more up-to-date version of this video. So at some point at the beginning of your deployment, you should be supplied with a folder called PeDRA template. Now you might be given this on a USB stick or a pen drive, in which case you can just drag the folder from the pen drive onto your desktop. On the other hand, it might be emailed to you, in which case you'll probably have to unzip it and then drag it across and put it on your desktop. I'm going to assume that you're able to unzip the template and make it available in this way. So this video also assumes that today you performed an interview and now you're back at the accommodation and you'd like to fill in a debriefing template. So you have the PeDRA template, the master folder, already on your desktop, and there's a couple of things which you need to do, 3 things, before you open a blank template and you start filling it in. And I'm going to go through each of those on this slide now, and then I'm actually going to perform them on the screen so that you can see how to do them. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is double click on the PeDRA template, the master folder that you have on your desktop. And once you've opened it, you need to create a new folder based on this naming convention. Now, on the naming convention of the name of the folder, the first couple of letters can be your initials. So then we know that this template was filled in by you. Then do an underscore, and then day, day, month, month, year, year, another underscore, and then 2 digits to signify whether this was the first, second, or third template that you've completed on this particular day. So this example here, it's a silly example so that we can remember it. This is Santa Claus, and Santa Claus did this template on Christmas Day. That's the 25th of the 12th, 2015, and this was the first template of the day. So this folder was created with this naming convention inside the PeDRA master template folder. Now, once this folder has been created, you will need to double click on that and go inside the folder and then create one more folder that's just called IMG. And this is the place where you can put all of your images, any photographs that you've taken that will be useful for the agency to have, such as the boat, any equipment, any documents found in the bottom of the boat, and so forth. Once you've created this image folder, IMG, inside the template folder, now is also the time to drag and drop all of these image files into this IMG folder. This concludes the preparation before you need to start filling in the template. Okay, so just to go over that again, you've got the PeDRA template folder on your desktop. Inside the PeDRA template folder, you need to make a folder which has this naming convention. Inside this folder with the naming convention, you need to create another folder called IMG. And inside IMG, you can drag and drop all your images and all your attachments. Okay, so this is really a 3-step process, and we're going to go ahead and do that now and then fill in the template. So this is a piece of software that I use to unzip folders which are sent to me by email. So I was sent a zipped version of the PeDRA template folder, and this software has unzipped it for me, and now I can drag and drop that onto my desktop. Okay, so there it is. And now to start the process, I've got it on my desktop. I can double click on it and open the PeDRA template, the master folder. And we can see here we have an index, a HTML file. This is actually the blank template that we'll be filling in a moment. But before we start filling it in, you know, we have to do this 3-stage process. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create the folder with the naming convention. So this is the folder which will have the name that says who did the interview and when. There's a few different ways of doing this actually. So on this version of Windows, you can see at the top here we have a button that says New Folder. So I could click on that button and a new folder would appear. And you can also see that when I hover the mouse over this button, that this information box comes up that says it's new folder, and we can also create a new folder by pressing Control, Shift and N. Okay, but this time actually I'm going to go into this space and I'm going to right click and go down to New and then go up to Folder. So there's the new folder. All we need to do now is to tap in the name, and it was a silly name so we can remember it. Santa Claus underscore, and it was the 25th of December 2015, and it was the first template of the day. And then I press enter. So that's step one. I can double click on this folder now, go inside. Now I'm going to click this button, new folder, and I'm going to call this one IMG. So I type in IMG and hit enter. There we go. Now this is the time for me to drag across the images that I'd like to attach to the template. So actually I'm going to open this image folder by double clicking. And I've got a folder here with some images in. Let's open that. And you can see that there are 3 images here that I'd like to attach to the template when I fill it in. The first one is boat. I'll drag and drop that. The second one is some instructions, a kind of map that was found perhaps at the bottom of the boat. And the third one was a picture of some migrants. So I drag those across. Let me close this folder. Now we can see that these 3 images, they're all JPEGs, they're all inside the folder image. And the folder with the naming convention that we created is empty apart from the image folder. And then we're back up to the PeDRA template folder, and we can see the folder with the naming convention here. Okay, so now we've done those 3 steps. Those are the 3 steps that we had on our original slide. We created the folder with the naming convention. We went inside this folder and created another folder called image, and then we dragged and dropped our images inside to the IMG folder. Okay, so we followed those 3 steps. Now we're ready to fill in the template. Here's the template file here. Now you could double click on that and it would just open, but it would open in your default browser. Some people prefer to choose the browser that's going to open this file, and the way to do that is you right click on the index file and you find open with, and you can see there's a number of different options actually for opening a HTML file on this computer: Firefox, Google Chrome and Internet Explorer. I would actually choose them in that order. I would use Firefox first, and then Google Chrome if I didn't have Firefox, and Internet Explorer if I didn't have the other 2. This is quite an important point, that you need to have, quite up-to-date versions of these browsers in order for the template to work. So if you've got one that's dreadfully old, this might be a good time to try and do an update. Okay, so we'll do Firefox. We'll open with Firefox, and then we should be able to see the template. Okay, so this is the debriefing template. You can see the name of the agency at the top, and also the version of the template and the help email address. The way the template works is you have several tabs across the top which you can click on and fill in one after the other. Quite an important thing you need to do before you start is, you can see file name here in red. The reason why that's in red is because you need to fill that in straight away, and indeed some bits of the template won't work until you've got this filled in. So the file name has to match the name of the folder. This is the tricky bit. It has to match. So we remember Santa Claus underscore on the 25th of December 2015 01. Now there will be no way of knowing whether this matches the name of the folder or not at this stage, but if it doesn't, there might be a couple of problems later on which we'll need to correct. Okay, but I think that this one should match. Now you can fill in the template. It's quite self-explanatory. you'll notice that whenever you hover over one of the boxes, that little information box appears. So this shouldn't present you with too much problem. If anyone has been deployed previously and used the old template, this is basically exactly the same template. So we followed it exactly. The first tab, General tab, talks about where and when the interview took place. Profile talks about the profile of the migrant. Remember, we're not interested in the name of the migrant at all. All the interviews are anonymous, but we do want to know what type of migrant they were, if you like. The next tab is the route and the modus operandi. Some push and pull factors here which you can fill in. It's useful to have a look at these before you conduct any interviews so that you know the types of options that you could give. But if the migrant says something that we haven't thought of before, then you can type it in here. So this is the route and the modus operandi, and then at the end of this page, there's legs of the journey. And if you click on that, another page opens where you can type countries and cities and how long the migrant spent in each of these places. This is the important bit, really, the interview. This is where you can type the narrative, the story that the migrant was able to share with you. If you're going to put any personal data in at all, then it needs to be within these square brackets. And personal data can be names, phone numbers, bank accounts, anything that will potentially allow us to identify a specific individual. And the reason for this is because it will allow us to extract these data automatically, put them into a database for further processing and for transmission onto recipient agencies. Okay, so any personal data within these square brackets, please. And you can see here we have an example sentence where the name of the facilitator is in brackets there. Now the next point is also really important, this key points and other notes. This is where we'd like you to really condense as much as possible the migrant's story into just a couple of sentences, containing mostly keywords. And this is really useful because this will help us classify the story. It will help us with indexing for searching, and it's a really important part of the template where we can very quickly look and see generally what the story of the migrant was without wasting too much time with all the details. Then the final bit, this is where you can upload all your pictures, maps and so forth, and other things that you think it would be useful for us. So there's a couple of steps to this. You can put in the legend, you can describe the photo in terms of its place, date and content. Okay, and then you browse to pick it up and then upload. So we can go ahead and do that. Let's browse for the first one. So we'll go to desktop and we find the PeDRA template folder as we did before. Here's our folder with the naming convention. Inside is the image folder and we have our 3 images. So let's go ahead and select boat. Okay, upload. And it's the boat. Let's do the same for the next one. Instructions, upload. And finally, let's do the migrants. And there we have it. Of course, we'd want a lot more description in here than just these words that I've put. Okay, anything that will give us any context. And for the rest of the time, this legend here will be physically attached to this photograph so that even in many years to come, this will be very securely linked to the image. Okay, so we're probably ready to save now. We've completed the final tab, so we can go down to the bottom. These 2 buttons are available on all the tabs. So let's go ahead and click on Save. We're going to save file. Now on some browsers, when you click on Save File, it goes straight to the download folder. and it saves it as a text file, .txt. That's okay, but you need to take it from the download folder and put it into the proper folder. I'll show you where right now. You can actually change some of the settings in your browser to ask it to do what it's done here, which is to give me an option of where to save it. So in this case, I'm not saving direct to the downloads folder. My browser now, it knows that I want to save the file somewhere else, not in the download folder, so it's giving me the chance to do that. So I'll go to my desktop, into the PeDRA template, into my naming convention folder, and we save it next to the IMG folder. Now, if you weren't able to do that, you would now have to open your downloads folder and drag and drop from the download folder into your naming convention folder. So that's it, it's saved. Let's imagine that you probably have many of these. It's been a couple of days and you've got many of these folders, and you want to have a look and you want to read some of your previous ones. What some people might do is to double click on one of the naming convention folders and then to double click on the text file. All you're going to get is text. This is what we use actually to create the database, but it's not very useful for looking at what you've done. So the way to do this is to go back into your master folder and open the index file, open with Firefox, and you can see it's blank. There's nothing in the interview field. It's totally blank. But if we go down to the bottom and click on open and browse, we'll find our way to the folder, and this is the text file that we just opened, and we saw it as the text file. And now if we open it from inside the template and press load, we should now have the interview that we can read. We can see the different push factors and pull factors, and we can see the images. So that's the way to open a template that someone else has performed, or one that you performed on an earlier date. We appreciate this is not the simplest thing in the world, but we hope that once you've done it a couple of times, that it shouldn't present too many problems. And we just need to remember that we're going to have the PeDRA template as the master folder on the desktop. We always need to create a folder via the naming convention, and inside there we make an image folder and we put the images inside. Then we go ahead and we open the template and we save it in this folder next to the IMG. Okay, so if there are any problems, please get in touch, but otherwise good luck, ask all the right questions and get a lot of this important data. Thank you.